Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Unconventional Man. These are your lessons for this week, week 6. We're back at it. Welcome back. How was your little, I called it March break, because it's like halfway in between. And honestly, these breaks are really, really important. All types of breaks. Like the more steady you are with your exercise, the more a break actually works to your favor. The more efficient your muscle gets, the more your muscle is dying for the rest. So honestly, accept, enjoy, and embrace all of your breaks. While I'm on that, sometimes just the break of being, as much as we don't like it, not well. You're not well because you're pushing against your rhythm, and you need to stop and recuperate. So again, appreciate your breaks. But having said that, the break is over and we got to get back to the game. Yes. So I'm going to use an analogy from my college coach. One of my favorite experiences was from freshman year going into sophomore year. Well, we're not even talking about going into sophomore year. We're talking about freshman season and getting into the second half of the season. And coach calls us in and he's like, you are no longer a freshman. In other words, you've made beginner mistakes, and now it's time to man up, to step up, and uh, take accountability for the obstacles, for the challenges, for the habitual mistakes that you have been making. That's part of the transformation you've got to make. So, you guys, that part of the hump was to let you exhale so you can move from freshman to sophomore status. So let's keep that in mind. um, your milestone check. Let's check to make sure we're progressing and learning and capturing the skills we talked about. So with your shapes, you at this point need to be able to stay in a stretch for 3 to 4 minutes, which means you need to be able to move inside the stretch. You need to be able to breathe inside the stretch. You need to be able to adjust and find the different angles to hold yourself under pressure. So remember, you guys are practicing that. Keep working on that. Your breathing skills. You need to, by this time, be able to achieve a 4-second inhale. That's one breath. Okay. So that's your skill. Check your milestones. Keep working towards it. And in terms of your Pilates practice, you should feel fairly confident up to exercise 18. The skills themselves don't change. Perch, scoop, cinch, pinch, those will always be there. You got to continue getting better at them, but the skills are the same. So the big part of what we're going to do going forward is we're going to practice weaving the sequences and the patterns together. And so what that means is you have a pattern of how often you do things every week. And then in the actual exercises, there's a separate sequence of actions that you're doing. And it's that layering of the rhythm of you doing and the pattern of what you're doing that sharpens the saw and brings you that new skill set. Okay, your breathing exercise, well, this was one that was easier to teach, but honestly, it's going to be harder for you guys to do. And this part is now you're starting to take your skills and bring them to actual life. Remember, what we want to achieve from your breathing skills is the ability to stop at any moment in time and just center yourself around yourself, your awareness, your presence by just practicing the most fundamental exercise that you can do. That's honestly what this thing is about. So part of this is the physical skill of you practicing consciously making the ribs and the diaphragm bigger and stronger. And the other part is you learning how to focus your mind in the right place, relax your mind into the right place. When you go into like practicing regular breathing or just simply being aware of regular breathing, there's a crossover between, okay, I was thinking about it, I was doing these actions, and that really kind of builds this connection. And then when you stop thinking about it, your awareness is still in that space. So practice that as you're practicing your regular breathing. This week's shapes video. Well, this is the same slide as last week because again, I'm trying to help you guys remember that we're stacking. So this really is about the shapes that we did prior to this and helping keep your mind focused on how to make sure you're always doing these shapes in patterns. I am adding to the workbook some of the patterns and how I want you guys to sequence them together. So that will be part of your email. But the new stretch that we added to the sequence is a very well-known stretch. Comment like it feels great, everybody wants to do it, and this is the wide-legged stretch, and here's different variations for you guys to see how you can play with it. What I want you to grasp when you're practicing these stretches, and even as you look at these pictures, I want you to see your Pilates setup. Can you see seated forward stretch, how you need to use your scoop and perch muscles to sit up nice and tall? Can you see saw, where you got to sit up and you have to rotate your upper body? Can you see roll over, where you have to put your hands on the floor and roll your legs over your head towards the wall? All of these are connected. So while you are practicing the stretch element, still go and get your scoop and perch muscles and push to the end range of your muscles. That's going to be the best way to make these movements lively and alive inside your body. Okay, I don't know if I can move this. Kind of wish, I don't know if I can grab it. All right, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Rolling the feet and the calves. So, you know, there's not much I can tell you about the calves that, picture number one doesn't capture for you. We've talked about the posterior chain. You can see that the calves are simply a part of that posterior chain. What you want to notice about the calves is that its insertion points wrap through and under the knee and under the heel, which means that tension, stress, or mobility and strength in the calf will affect both of those joints. So it is really, really important to roll the calves. The calves are the piston joint that actually manage the feet, and the feet take the most impact of anything, save maybe our heart. Like it carries all of your body weight. So it's crucially important to understand how to care for them in such a way that they can hold the structure and the pliability and the dexterity that really leads to health. So the pictures I really wanted to highlight for you was number 2. So in number 2, there are the spiral lines that we talk about for cinching and pinching, and you can even see the muscles on the back line that go to the back of the head and how they wrap through the hips, through the knees, using the calves and under the feet. So the point of emphasis here is that if you do want mobility in that lower body, upper body, anywhere, the action aligning, the working of the feet, the skill set that we use when we are standing and grounding our feet, and that there's a spiral twisting that happens for your ankles and your knees to move. It happens on the inside. That's why you've got to learn to work your center line, the centering concept, when you're doing your Pilates practice and your stretching practice. Picture number 3 really highlights this. I found this one and I really thought it was quite brilliant because, you've got the bones of the feet and you can see, heels are touching, toes are touching, and those numbers in between represent your vertebrae. And so, that tent concept that we talked about, it's that centering and that tenting concept that is giving the alignment to your spine. Okay, notice how the heels are imposed over the hips. Those are your pelvic. That's your sacrum. When I would say keep your sacrum on the mat, and then notice how the phalanges, the actual bones in your toes, those are related to movement and control in your upper body. So you know, they are a small body part, and sometimes it's hard to remember. You appreciate rolling your feet and your calves when you do it. um, the key is to make it part of the sequence of your habit so that they don't actually remind you that it needs to be done from whatever type of discomfort they could bring your way. The Pilates workshop this week. Well, again, this is a repeat. Well, a repeat in terms of the concept, because last week we talked about the Swan series. And in the Swan series, the idea was, how do you scoop and use your belly button and create tension on equal sides of your body when you are in, well, I couldn't call it an arch position, but the technical term is back extension, when the spine is extended. So in this week's workshops, we did um, shoulder bridge and neck pull and jackknife. And those exercises are simply reversing of the tenting concept. So as you practice those, it's the same scoop, wrapping of the hips, and centering action that you're gonna practice. That's really gonna accentuate and make your Pilates skills better from this week. So I was trying to make this week a short one. I guess I'm the one to stop at how short it was, but I wanted to get to the point and keep you guys focused, because you are doing great. And so now that we know, we did a self-check on the milestones that we focused on for the first 5 weeks, let's get clear on the milestones coming up. So you've got triple inhale, triple exhale, regular breathing. And so now that sequence you're going to bring in, and you're going to practice that. You've been practicing some of the shapes, and so mastering doing them as sequences, being able to hold it for 3 or 4 minutes in and out the repeating patterns, that's your next milestone with your shapes. And your rolling yoga tune-up balls are in the mail, and you are now going to learn how to get into some of the smaller crevices, those really impactful deep muscles in terms of our rolling. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Until next week, be unconventional.